Fire. It is the element that separated humanity from the beasts. It gave us warmth, protection, and the ability to cook our food. For millennia, creating fire was a laborious task involving friction or flint. But in the modern era, that Promethean power has been condensed into a splinter of wood no larger than a toothpick, capped with a chemical head waiting to be unleashed. This is the matchstick. It is an object of such deceptive simplicity that we take it for granted. Yet, the industrial process required to manufacture 10 million of them every single day is a symphony of dangerous chemistry, blinding speed, and mechanical violence. To understand the match, we must first understand the wood. Our journey begins deep in the boreal forests of Northern Europe, Canada, or Russia. Not just any tree can become a match. Pine is too resinous, oak is too hard. The industry relies almost exclusively on the aspen, Populus tremula, or poplar tree. This wood possesses a unique cellular structure. It is white, odorless, and crucially, it has a long, straight grain. It is strong enough to withstand the strike pressure without snapping, yet porous enough to absorb the complex cocktail of chemicals needed to control the burn. The logs arrive at the Mega-Factory in massive trucks, stripped of their branches. They are fed into the debarker, a brutal machine that grinds away the rough outer skin, leaving behind a pristine white cylinder of wet wood. These logs are then cut into shorter billets, usually about 60 centimeters long. But here is the challenge. How do you turn a round log into millions of square sticks? You don't saw it, you peel it. The billets are mounted onto a massive industrial lathe. As the log spins at high speed, a razor-sharp blade running the entire length of the wood presses against it. A continuous sheet of wood, known as veneer, peels off the log like unrolling a carpet. This sheet is shaved to a thickness of exactly 2.3 to 2.5 millimeters, the precise square dimension of a matchstick. It is a mesmerizing display of precision engineering. The blade must be perfectly calibrated. If it is too deep, the matches will be thick and wasteful. Too shallow, and they will snap in the consumer's hand. The veneer sheet moves rapidly along a conveyor belt to the chopping machine. This is the loudest part of the factory, a rhythmic, deafening clatter. The veneer sheets are stacked on top of each other, sometimes 50 to 100 layers deep. A massive guillotine blade, moving faster than the human eye can track, slams down, chopping the sheets into millions of individual splints. In a single second, a log is transformed into a chaotic shower of wooden sticks. But at this stage, these are just raw pieces of wood. If you were to light one, it would burn unpredictably. The wood contains natural sap and moisture that could cause the flame to sputter. More dangerously, untreated wood has a property called afterglow. When you blow out a normal piece of burning wood, the ember continues to glow red hot for a long time. If a consumer were to throw a used match into a trash can while it was still glowing, it could start a catastrophic fire. To solve this, the match industry uses chemistry. The millions of raw splints are submerged in a massive chemical bath containing ammonium phosphate or phosphoric acid. This is the impregnation stage. The aspen wood drinks up this solution. This chemical serves as a fire retardant. It ensures that when the flame consumes the wood, the resulting charcoal is structurally stable and, most importantly, when the flame is extinguished, the ember dies instantly. There is no afterglow. The match is safe. After the chemical bath, the sticks are soaking wet. They are fed into giant rotating industrial dryers, tumbling in hot air until their moisture content drops to nearly zero. Then comes the polishing drum. Imagine a clothes dryer the size of a house. The dried sticks are tumbled against each other. The friction rubs away any rough edges, splinters, or dust. The result is a smooth, uniform stick that feels pleasant to the touch. Finally, the sticks undergo a rigorous sorting process. They are shaken over vibrating sieve screens. Any stick that is too short, too thin, or broken falls through the mesh and is discarded as biomass fuel. Only the perfect splints march forward. They are aligned by the millions into shaking hoppers, standing upright, ready to receive the crown that will give them life. They are no longer just wood. They are the chassis for an explosion. They are ready for the dip.
We leave the woodworking floor and enter a restricted, climate-controlled zone known as the chemical kitchen. The air here is filtered and humidity is strictly monitored. Static electricity is the enemy. A single spark in this room could level the building. Here, in stainless steel vats, the match head composition is mixed. It looks like a thick red or sometimes blue or green sludge, similar to wet clay. But this paste is a volatile cocktail of oxidizers, fuels, and binders. The recipe is a closely guarded secret, but the fundamental chemistry relies on 3 key components. First, potassium chlorate. This is the oxidizer. It provides the oxygen needed for the fire to burn rapidly, even before it draws oxygen from the air. Second, sulfur or charcoal. This is the fuel that burns. Third, and perhaps most surprisingly, powdered glass or silica. This provides the friction and acts as a regulator for the burn rate. Everything is bound together with animal gelatin, which glues the chemicals to the stick. The millions of wooden splints we prepared earlier are now fed into the continuous dipping machine. This machine is a behemoth, often spanning multiple floors of the factory. It consists of a massive moving belt made of metal bars. Each bar is perforated with thousands of tiny holes. A machine punches the wooden sticks into these holes, so they are held firmly, standing upright like soldiers in an infinite army, pointing downwards. The belt carries the sticks across the factory ceiling. First, they pass through a bath of hot paraffin wax. Only the bottom few millimeters of the stick are dipped. This wax is critical. It acts as the bridge between the chemical head and the wood. The chemical head burns very fast, too fast to ignite the wood on its own. The burning head ignites the wax, and the burning wax ignites the wood. Without this wax step, the match would flare up and go out instantly. Next comes the main event, the head dip. The belt lowers the army of sticks precisely over a roller coated in the red chemical paste. The sticks do not plunge into a vat, that would be too messy. Instead, they kiss the surface of the roller. The viscosity of the paste is calibrated so that a perfect bulbous globule adheres to the end of the stick. This forms the iconic match head. Now the matches are live. They are potential firebombs. The belt carries them on a long, winding journey through the upper levels of the factory to dry. This drying path can be over 1 kilometer long, winding back and forth. Giant fans blow gentle, temperature-controlled air over the heads. They must dry slowly. If they dry too fast, the outer shell hardens while the inside remains wet, causing the head to crack or explode when struck. If they dry too slow, they won't ignite properly. The factory is equipped with advanced fire suppression systems. Infrared sensors monitor the belt. If a single match ignites due to friction, high-pressure foam cannons or water mists deploy instantly to isolate the section. It is a daily dance with danger. Once the heads are dry and hard, the matches reach the ejection station. A row of steel pins punches the finished matches out of the belt. They fall into a chaotic pile, a waterfall of red and white. But the process isn't over. They must be boxed. The inner box and outer box are assembled by high-speed robots from cardboard sheets. But the box is more than just a container. It is the other half of the ignition system. We are making safety matches. This means the match will not light if you strike it against a rock or a wall, unlike the strike-anywhere matches of old, which contained phosphorus in the head. For a safety match, the ignition chemical is not on the stick, it is on the box. The side of the box, the honeycomb pattern strip, is painted with a slurry of red phosphorus and powdered glass. This is the genius of the invention. The match head contains the oxidizer, potassium chlorate, and the box contains the igniter, red phosphorus. They are kept separate until the moment of use. When you strike the match, the friction generates heat. A tiny amount of red phosphorus on the box turns into white phosphorus, which ignites spontaneously in the air. This tiny flare ignites the potassium chlorate in the match head, which releases oxygen, fueling the sulfur, which lights the wax, which burns the wood. All of this chemistry happens in less than 1/10 of a second. The sorting machines vibrate the matches so they all align in the same direction, heads one way, tails the other. They are pushed into the boxes, usually 40 or 50 per box. The boxes are wrapped in packs of 10, then cartons of 100. From a frozen aspen tree in the tundra to a pocket-sized marvel of chemical engineering, the matchstick is a product we destroy to use. It is cheap, disposable, and absolutely vital, produced by the billions in a factory that must never, ever let its guard down.